order, but you being here constitutes it. Call to the round.
Good evening. Welcome to the February 2nd, 2026 Tri-Board meeting here at TMS. This video is audio and video recorded. And we'll start with introductions to my far left.
Good evening, Sean Walsh, Assistant Town Manager.
Good evening, Town Manager Colin Loisel.
Good evening, Select Board, Jack Gilfus.
Good evening, Ron Schneider, Select Board.
Good evening, Eric Eldridge, Select Board.
Good evening, Adele Coughlin, Select Board.
Good evening, Ron Cohen, Select Board.
Good evening, Carolyn Scafidi, Finance Committee.
Good evening, Ralph Catalano, Finance Committee.
Good evening, Larry Clausen, Finance Committee.
Good evening, Ryan McMahon, School Committee.
Becky Stanton, School Committee.
Anthony Tenorella, School Committee.
Stacy Guido, School Committee.
Barry Bushman, School Committee.
Rob Mullen, School Committee.
Danielle Lefebvre, School Committee.
Sarah Lowenzik, Director of Student Services.
Dan Hogan, Assistant School Business Administrator.
Hi, Joe Messina, School Business Administrator.
Mike Woodlock, Assistant Superintendent.
Hi, Mike Flanagan, Superintendent.
Please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Flanagan.
Thank you very much, Mr. McMahon, Chair McMahon. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the brand new, beautiful Tyngsborough Middle School. Wonderful facility this is. Great spot for a tri-board meeting, plenty of room. So my name is Dr. Flanagan, I'm the superintendent of schools, and tonight's really an opportunity for us to kind of talk about our level service budget. Historically, we present at a tri-board meeting to the FinCom and Select Board, and it's really kind of a 30,000-foot presentation, and it's a few minutes, and it's because Colin and I have already worked it out behind the scenes for the past 4 months. This year, things are a little different, so I think it's important that we tell you the story about the Tyngsborough Public School level service budget, how we arrived at this budget, and what it actually entails and what it encompasses. You know, I think when we think about who we educate, it's understood that we educate the students at Tyngsborough Elementary School, Tyngsborough Middle School, and Tyngsborough High School. But beyond those 1,600 kids, we also have a legal obligation. Any resident aged 3 to 22 in this community who is identified with a disability is also our responsibility. So the cost to educate those individuals is also baked into our budget. On top of the elementary school, the middle school, the high school, we send students to other districts. We send them to private collaboratives. We send them to public school collaboratives. We send them to residential programs. That's all baked into our budget. Everyone gets excited in June, and the last day of school, places a mess, and kids exit the building going to Sullivan Farms. But we also have a lot of students that's not their last day of school, and they attend our ESY program. Some kids attend 7 days a week year-round. Some kids are part of a residential program, and the cost to educate and support those kids are on our budget 24/7. That's baked into this as well. Most importantly, it's the how. How do we educate these kids? And we focus on the individual needs of every learner and provide them the very best possible education we can. So what does that look like? These are not real students in Tyngsborough. It's a fictional picture. But let's meet Holly, Georgia, Dylan, and Joe. Typical kids, 4th graders, 10 years old. I think about when I was in 4th grade, 1982. Very different time, very easy to budget back then. 100 kids in 4th grade, simple. 25, 25, 25, 25. You need 4 teachers. That was it, 1982, not a problem. It's very different nowadays because we have to meet these students and support them and identify their needs and support their needs. Those needs can be a one-to-one. Everyone's got a classroom teacher, but they might require a special education teacher. They might require a one-to-one paraprofessional. They might require a one-to-one nurse. They might require OT therapy, speech, PT, counseling services, school psychologist services. All of these services are built into an IEP, a 504, a local DCAP plan. Our goal is to educate all these kids to the best of our ability. This grid is critical to our budget development, and we're going to come back to this grid, so please remember this grid as we go on. Historically, we've gotten 2.7%. That was kind of the agreement we had. We locked into that for 5 years. 2.7%, over $600,000. For next year, it's $650, $630. That's what 2.7% increase is. So beginning in December, we work with our building principals and all administrators, and we say, develop a level service budget. Nothing new, Nothing additional, no new initiatives, no new programs. Pick this year's schedule and people up and place it to next year. What does that look like? What's that cost? So that's what we do. To do that for next year, you can see it's about a $1.2 million increase, or 4.6% increase. So how do we get there? There are 4 significant drivers that make up essentially 95% of our budget. First one, utilities. Second one, out-of-district tuitions, transportation, and of course, salaries and wages. So the goal tonight is to dive into each one of these drivers a little bit, kind of give you some perspective about how we are, where we are, and talk about next steps and hopefully some solutions. But these are the big 4 that really drive our budget. Out-of-district tuitions. It is costly. It's costly to educate kids now. As we think about it, I think the best way to kind of highlight it is to do a 5-year look back. So if we look back 5 years, you can see we had 287 students identified as special education, 287 out of 1611, so 17.2%. You can see where we are today. Our percentage has gone up by 4%. Doesn't seem like a significant number, but here's where I want you to look. 11 students versus 37 students in the high needs category. That's a 300% increase in high needs. So when we talk about that grid and the services that our students need, the higher the need, the more services and supports they need. So that's significant, and that drives our budget. That drives our staffing pattern. Another number that I want you to look at, 21 to 25. It's just 4. It's just 4 students. That's important because out-of-district tuitions can be minimally 37 plus 43 for transit, minimally $80,000 per student, minimally. So the range of those 4 out-of-district placements is from $80,000 to just over $500,000. Those are our kids, and that's driving our costs. So as we think about it, next year, based on our enrollment and our projections, we have a $444,000 increase in out-of-district tuitions, 15.1% increase. The cost for these tuitions is not set by us, it's not negotiated by us, we cannot bargain it, it is set by the state. And I will say that minimally, every year, out-of-district tuitions go up by at least 3%. Unless you go back to a couple years ago, when OSD unilaterally made a decision to go up by 14%. And there was an uproar, and we talked to our legislators, and nothing happened. It stayed at 14%. So this is a significant number. This is a significant driver in our budget. Is it a Tyngsborough problem? No, it's not. And I will say, tongue-in-cheek here a little bit, this is 2-year-old data from the state. My guess is it's higher than 19.6% right now. Because if you look in 2021, when the state was at 18, we were at 17.1. So we were below the state average 5 years ago, and it continues to rise. This is not a Tyngsborough issue. It's a national issue. Second driver, utility costs. Again, here we are in a big, beautiful new school, and we're trying to assess what the actual costs will be. Mr. Messina will speak a little bit more in depth on it later, but we did look at 4 or 5 months worth of utility bills in this building, and it's hard to understand exactly what it's going to be. We're in the process right now of having the solar panels installed, so Joe used a calculation based on what we get for the high school to kind of drive the number mathematically for a half year to get to what the potential increase will be. So we're looking at a 200% increase, $200,000 increase in utilities, 35% increase. $200,000. So if you go back to that 2.7%, 650, that's already gone. We're already over it right now. And just 2 of our major drivers. And the thing I want to show here is we've been able typically, as we think about utilities, we know it's 40 to 65, about 50,000, right in the middle. That's where we kind of budget. So we knew it was going to go up. But I think one of the telling things here is this. 8.1%. 13.3%, 7%. We know we live in a 2.5% world. We know that. But when utilities go up at that rate, we can't keep up with it. We can't stay on top of it. It's going to impact something. Something has to give. We know that. Think about our third driver, transportation. I put Innovation Academy on here. I put Notre Dame on here as well. So everyone in the room understands. If you are a Tyngsborough resident who attends Innovation and/or Notre Dame, that cost is built into the Tyngsborough Public School budget. We have a great relationship with them, and we do the very best we can to mesh schedules. But anytime there's a deviation from our schedule by Notre Dame or Innovation, that comes out of our budget. We pay for that extra bus loop or extra swing. If they want to go on a field trip, they want to call a half day, we pay for that. So anytime they make a change, it comes out of the Tyngsborough Public School budget. This is the transportation costs. 5-year look at that. Again, 4.9%, 13%, 3%, 7%. We live in a 2.5% world. Doesn't work. The other thing I will say is this. In 15 years, we have not had a competitive bid for transportation. And you will not find one school district in this area that has two choices. Everyone's getting one bid. We've talked about this. We've talked about this at Tri-Board for years. It's the reality. This is where we are. So it's a problem. It's funny because this slide was presented to the school committee on December 9th. Sorry, it's already obsolete. Okay? Unfunded mandates, McKinney-Vento. If a family has a housing issue and they double up in either Tyngsborough or they leave Tyngsborough and double up in a local community, if they leave us and go to, say, Lowell, and those kids want to stay in the Tyngsborough public school system, it's our responsibility with the city of Lowell to split the cost and provide transportation for those kids to stay in Tyngsborough. Conversely, we would provide it to a Lowell kid who ended up in Tyngsborough that wanted to go back to Lowell. That's how the law is written. So we provide transportation for kids at a cost share with the district of origin, and there's no money that comes from the state from that. 5 years ago, we had 3 students that could be identified as McKinney-Vento. Right now, we are 18, not 15, 18 right now. So we've gone up 3 since the December 9th presentation of the school committee. No funding attached to that. That's a problem that also drives our transportation costs. The last one, salaries and wages, 2.4. That's the increase, that's the request to get level service for next year. That also includes a reduction of 2 positions. We're not going to fill Mr. Messina's position, and we're not going to fill an LPN position in the district. So with a reduction of 2 staff members already, the increase or the ask is a 2.4% increase. Our salary and wage increase for the last 5 years for the Tyngsborough Public Schools averages 1.43%. How? That's how. We've lived in a 2.7% budget for the last 5 years. Last 4 years, we've cut 14.2 full-time equivalent positions. This budget, projects cutting 2 more positions. So 16.2 FTE reduction in the last 5 years. So it's a 2.4% growth. We do that while we talk about our enrollment. Our enrollment's rebounding. We're up 26 students this year. That's a 1.6% increase. This is based on the data that was used by the MSBA to determine the student enrollment for this school. This is year 1 of a 5-year trend of a modest increase, but increase nonetheless of enrollment, and then a plateau. So our enrollment is not going down. And actually, I have to say, I'm jealous because we had a conversation, and you said Greater Lowell is getting 20 more students, so that's why they're asking for more money in terms of their assessment. I'm jealous of Greater Lowell. We have 26 more students. We can't ask for that. They have a proper funding formula. We don't. We don't. And it all comes down to this. Our Chapter 70 funding has increased by an average of 1.69% over the past 5 years. That's state funding us to support public education. So that's where we are. These are our problems. This is our reality right now. So, our level service budget was $1.1 million. If we were to assume a 2.7% increase from the town, we right now, as of today, have a $475,000 problem that I have to present to the school committee next week and say, here are possible ways we can address that $475,000 gap. We haven't even talked about it yet. In conversation with Colin, I recognize that there's an $856,000 town, bigger town issue, and that there's a desire to go with a 60-40 split on that. So if we were to assume 60% of that 856, that's 513. If that 513 comes off the 650 of the 2.7, our growth would be just over 0.5%, or $137,000 for next year, which ultimately means that's how far we were away from the 2.7, and that's the town 60%. We have about $1 million problem at Tyngsborough Public Schools. We're about $1 million away from level service. So the conversations we have to have, and everything will be on the table: staffing, fees, programs, you name it. Closing the schools at 3 o'clock, all that stuff will be on the table. But it comes down to positions. I mean, 80% of the budget's positions. Right now, we've projected to not fill 2 positions. To address 474, 6 to 9 positions, probably. To address 1 million, a dozen to 14, I don't know. And that's if we just did positions. We'd have to have conversations about fees and all those other things as well. So that's where we are. Everything would be on the table. And that's something we have to really tackle and think about. So working with Colin, we've met more in the past couple of weeks than we have in a long time, which is great. We'll get there. We'll get to a number. We will work it out. The question is going to become what is the impact and what does it look like for kids? I'm confident that we will open the doors in August and we're going to have a great product for our students. We absolutely are, 100%. What does it look like and how do we get there? So I think there's some work to do, some conversation to have as we kind of move forward. But that's kind of where we are at a high level, drilling down a little bit deeper than we have in the past. Wanted to give an opportunity for anyone to kind of ask questions at this time. I do have Mr. Messina here, who knows everything about everything with numbers. Mr. Woodlock from Teaching and Learning. Dan's here, can help with Joe with some of the things, but he's still kind of learning. And Sarah Lewenzik's here to answer any questions about any student services that we have, if you want to know more information about that. So with that, I don't know if you want to jump in, Colin, or
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Flanagan. One of the things that I think is obvious from this presentation is that the school budget is far more complicated than we can kind of solve or address this evening. So certainly, you've got all the people with the answers here. I don't want to take away from time for questions, but what I would recommend we do moving forward, and it's not uncommon, is that as a takeaway from this meeting, the school committee appoints 2 representatives, the select board appoints 2 representatives, and the finance committee appoints 1 representative to work with Dr. Flanagan and I and our teams to identify potential paths forward. I think that we won't be able to do that in this large of a setting, but I also think that because of the complexities of the budget, there's far too many scenarios, and before we start creating panic or confusion, I think working in those smaller groups and then having that smaller group report back to the tri-board. We currently have a tri-board meeting scheduled for the end of February. We could certainly push that to the beginning of March if we needed to. So I would just leave that as what I think is the most appropriate next step, because the other thing is that we can solve the fiscal 27 problem, but we're going to immediately need to talk about how we address the funding challenges that we will inevitably face again in fiscal 28 and fiscal 29. So certainly I'll stop talking now so that if you have questions, you've got the experts here. But I would just say that I think coming out of this, we should have 2 representatives from school, select board, and 1 from finance committee, who are going to be able to work with Dr. Flanagan and I and Joe and Dan and his team to put a path forward together that addresses everybody's needs and doesn't cause unnecessary panic until we know really where it's going to land.
I support that 100%. I think that's one of the best things, if I could just jump in, that the fact that we've worked so closely over the past several years and not gone to fiefdoms and started throwing stones at each other. I think that's been critical and very important. And we've done that back to Matt Hansen years ago. I think that's been really powerful and effective. So I welcome the opportunity to kind of come together and say, how do we go forward here? And what's best for our community?
It doesn't, so the way I see this, I'm certainly not looking for any of the boards to create a new public body. So I would defer to each individual board. It would be great if at some point this week we know who the representatives are so that we can schedule a meeting right away. But it wouldn't be, certainly you would all report back to the tri-board, so it's not like this would be a, behind closed doors thing. But I'm not suggesting we create a new public body. 2 of the school committee members doesn't constitute a quorum, 2 select board members doesn't constitute a quorum. So there's no formal vote needing, but it would be great to know, the sooner the better, who the representatives would be.
Okay.
So I could just email you tomorrow with the representatives? Okay.
That works perfect.
Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Flanagan on our presentation?
I don't have a question. I do have a comment, though. Thank you for running through this. Granted, you went through an awful lot of information in a very short period of time. While we're not ready to talk about exactly what we're going to do, I think this information is really good for residents, those who are willing to go through and look at some of those. Many of the items that you had put up there, we've talked about before. However, there were some items in there that we haven't talked about before, and they're very material. And I would echo what Colin was talking about. I'm worried about this year and next year and the trend, just because while we've seen slight improvements at the state level, they pale in comparison to the impact that we've all been seeing year over year. And it's not just school funding items, it's health insurance, it's a variety. There's a lot of things going in really bad directions. So I think it's going to be important for us to set the stage for some of those items. But I appreciate you going through these items with it, because I took a lot of notes, and while we'll have the slides, just a lot of things that were new and hugely impactful to the budget. So thank you for doing that.
Of course.
I just wanted to say, I don't have any questions because obviously I'm on school committee and I'd heard this before, and I'm also on the budget subcommittee, so I was aware. I also have a past history of education, specifically special education, so a lot of this was not new information to me, but I appreciated that we did it in this type of organized fashion tonight, so I wanted to say thank you, because I think doing this way did allow some more specific information to get out that we haven't maybe had the opportunity to get out in more of the town hall tri-board type meeting. I'd like to thank Dr. Flanagan for putting the presentation together. I think it's important to get this information out to the public, to the finance committee, to our board of select, to really have a much better understanding of how we do form our budget, what drives our budget. I think that there can be some misinformation out there about things like, is our student number going down? It's not, it's going up. Our number for staff, it's not increasing though. And decisions that we need to make will impact our students. And like Dr. Flanagan said, come August, the end of August, our doors will open. And it is our responsibility to educate the students of Tyngsborough, the children of Tyngsborough. And they don't all come through our doors, like Dr. Flanagan said. Some of them go to other schools, but they're still our responsibility. Some of them through the summer still go to those schools. They're still our responsibility. Some of them, unfortunately, aren't able to live in our town, whether it's due to a housing situation, a foster care situation. They're still our responsibility. We still bus them to our schools. We still educate them. And we take that responsibility very seriously. And I just want everyone at home and those in this room to understand that. We aren't just talking about numbers. A saying that I learned very quickly joining school committee is we're not making sprockets. We don't manufacture appliances. We don't make cookie cutters. We are in the business of educating children, living, breathing children. We take that responsibility seriously. So I just hope everybody understands that our budget is not like a business budget. It's very different. It's a living, breathing animal. It can change at any time if a new family moves into our community, if a family faces a unfortunately tragic situation that changes their home life or their residence. It affects us, and it can happen after we've formed our budget. So those are all things that I think people need to be aware of. They're things that I learned since I joined school committee. So I'm just thankful that you came and that we were able to do our budget presentation this way this year. So thank you.
I would also, just to add to what Stacy said, for anybody at home who may be paying attention this evening, Sarah Lewenzik and her team put together an absolutely phenomenal deep dive presentation that was in the school committee meeting that Dr. Flanagan referenced on December 9th. I would encourage folks to go back on YouTube and watch that meeting, and it might answer a lot of the questions you have about some of these deeper dive things like the McKinney-Vento and a lot of the student services and needs that were brought up tonight. It's just, there were a lot of questions answered in that presentation, so I would definitely refer back to that as well.
So as the newest member of the select board, thank you very much for this. It was a very eye-opening experience. So it's just one of those things that, I went to school, right, but, didn't really get into all the details. And, but, as a concerned taxpayer, as I'm sure a lot of other concerned taxpayers who might be watching this, they're looking at it and hearing deficits and that, but they're also looking at the people in this room to figure it out, right? And so, I guess it is up to us in this room to figure it out. And so, I think the idea of having a subgroup is a good one, but is the expectation, what tools would this subgroup have at their disposal to sort of maybe help to, is it the expectation sort of like you have to roll up your sleeves and look at the detail, and like I heard about a deep dive, but I'm not sure what that deep dive is. Like it has, is it facts and figures and that type of thing. And I also heard that this isn't a company, but it's children. So, but it is in a way, still, finances. And so I think that we have to look at it that way as well. So I'm just throwing it out there, again, as a concerned taxpayer who hears all of these numbers, it is daunting. But again, I think that the people in this town are looking for people in this room to figure it out, and that's all I have to say. I'm going to get off of my soapbox now. So.
I'll just say a couple things. I don't.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I've been a big supporter of the schools throughout my tenure here. I've been here 9 years. There was one other year I know we did have, we had to come to an agreement, and we, as Dr. Flanagan said, we worked together. We worked well together, and I hope that's what we're going to be doing again. When this first came up, it was discussed, this isn't a structural deficit, and they had a big discussion. I wasn't at the meeting. It was a structural deficit or just a deficit. But I do feel the way things are going, you could talk about utility costs, you can talk about transportation costs, healthcare. That's 2 years in a row, 15, 17%. Don't see that going down too much. Nobody has the will to change that. And so, it all rolls downhill, and, as Select Person Coughlin said, it's up to the people in this room to kind of figure it out, work together and figure it out is the key message, right? But there's a lot of, the costs are just skyrocketing right now. the 2.5% that, we get from the residents, I feel the residents feel that they would like to keep it that way and not increase that, right? So we have a huge challenge in front of us. I do feel the subcommittee is the best way to do it, a small group of people to do that. On our side, I would love to volunteer. I've been here the longest, been through this a few times, with you, and I would love to help out. But, in the end, this is going to hurt, and we just have to know that. There's no way really around that. It's a matter of how much it's going to hurt is really what we have to work on. But the numbers you have, the numbers that we presented, they're just outrageous. I mean, we're getting 2.5% more, and everything's going up 10, 15%. The biggest drivers are going up, that high. So we have a huge challenge in front of us. I think the subcommittee is the best way to do this, and I couldn't think of another way to do it. So, I hope that we form that committee, and I look forward to it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the only thing I would add is we concentrate a lot on enrollment number. And at the end of the day, the enrollment number means nothing. It's the needs of the students that are enrolled that means everything. And that's what drives a lot of our increases in costs. So you can't just look at 1,600 students and say we need 42 teachers. That's not how our budget works. So I think it's important that we keep that in mind when we talk about enrollment figures. So it's the only thing I would add.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Just one question. I was wondering, were there any anticipated efficiencies from using this facility on going forward, or is it actually just add cost over the course of time? So for instance, having a completely new building with new facilities in it, were there any efficiencies anticipated, even though you've only operated the school for a few months, but are there savings that you might see down the line if those came to fruition?
So I would speak towards instructional efficiencies, but I will let Mr. Messina speak to the utilities and those types of efficiencies.
So certainly efficiencies when you look at the building envelope itself, because the old middle school, we had single glazed windows, and you could probably literally see the heat going out the windows on the really cold days. Some of that has been replaced by some of the newer costs of these systems that include annual maintenance of the HVAC systems. Newer HVAC systems come in, there's an annual cost to maintain them. All of them have Wi-Fi capability and can be monitored off-site. The other thing that is going to change our budget quite a bit is this is an electricity heated building. The previous middle school was a natural gas heated building. So it's a new building. We have years of data in terms of the utilities of the old middle school. That's gone. So we're hoping that we get some efficiencies with the solar panels that are coming onto the roof, and just trying to gauge how much capacity of those panels is going to be taking away from the electricity bills. I think Mr. Loisel's probably mentioned utility costs in his presentation. We're in a good place with our natural gas costs. We're locked into pretty decent rate for a number of years. Electricity, we're trying to wait for that sweet spot to lock into multiple years, but right now we're going year by year just because the rates aren't there. And when we have 2 weeks of single-digit temperatures, the rates are only going up. So we're hoping in the spring, if we can lock into a better rate, we'll see some rate savings there. So once we get the 12 months in to do a better analysis with the solar panels working and how much capacity they take on, I think any efficiencies we're going to recognize were absorbed into the increased costs of the building. So it's going to be a little bit more expensive with utilities. The question now for us is just how much is it going to be?
Joe, maybe now's a good time to talk about the solar canopy potential.
Sure. So, one of the things that Dr. Flanagan and myself have talked with Mr. Loisel in terms of what we may be looking at come Springtown meeting is, we have an agreement through the townspeople to put solar projects onto our roofs at 20-year pricing agreements, but solar canopy options are out there, but that requires, A, they're not on our roofs, so they're adjacent to the buildings, and B, these are 25-year pricing agreements. So it's our intention to most likely go back to the townspeople at Springtown meeting and ask that they allow the school committee to enter into 25-year pricing agreements so we can look at solar canopy projects. And, you know, at this point in time, we've worked with our solar vendor to look at the elementary school side lot, sort of where the cafetorium is, for a solar canopy to go on that parking lot area at a very good supply cost. Much cheaper than what any of us would be looking at in terms of our bills. And in the solar panels right now, the high school panels, we're locked in at a 9.8 cent per kilowatt hour in supply. For those panels, where I think we're about 5 years in, maybe about 6 or 7 actually, we paid a little less than 10 cents for the electricity on those panels for the high school. We're going to be locked in for this building at 2.4 cents. So I think my last aggregation bill was probably something around 10 cents, Colin, I think it's in that area. The solar panel projects are a great way to save what National Grid's going to charge us to get electricity here, and it allows the school committee to get locked in at some pretty decent prices for a long term. So, you know, at some point in time, if the voters favorably approve that at town meeting, it might be this building that we look at a couple of years down the road to what a canopy in the area of this campus where we may be able to put a canopy.
Just on that, are the panels that are being put in, are they owned by the town of Tyngsborough or the school system, or are you into an agreement where someone else owns them?
No,
Buying the electric?
no, Select Energy owns the panels. The agreement is the school committee is responsible to pay all of the electricity off of those panels for the life of the agreement, which for this building will be 20 years.
So actually, even if those panels generated more electric than the school required, you could sell that to National Grid, is that true?
Yes. So it won't happen in this building because I think what we have on the roof is probably only sized for about a quarter of the need of this building. At the high school, the only time it happened was during the pandemic, when the buildings were closed down for a longer period of time. The town did receive that as general fund revenue. You're welcome. At that time, and it was probably like 2 or 3 months during the pandemic.
Dr. Flynn, did you mention instructional efficiencies?
Instructional. Instructional efficiencies.
Are there?
Yeah, I mean, that was the catalyst for building this new school, and we can certainly see those on a regular basis. You know, we don't have kids sitting in the hallways, we have kids collaborating, we have kids working together. We can meet all of our students' needs in appropriate learning spaces as opposed to the old facility we did had. So instructionally, there was no doubt we needed this school, and it's absolutely a home run for our kids and our staff.
We've seen an increase in attendance as a result of the new building too.
We've seen increase in attendance, both staff and students. It's been phenomenal.
So they've been captured, but not something that a year from now you expect more efficiencies necessary?
It's hard to quantify those.
Thank you, appreciate
Yeah.
Any additional comments, questions? Okay, thank you everybody for coming out tonight. Colin will be in touch tomorrow with 2 members from our committee.
Just real quickly, does the finance committee want to designate that person while you're here?
We can, well, we're going to continue a meeting after this meeting.
Correct.
So we could,
Okay, so then I'll just ask, does the select board want to formally vote on that right now, or do you want to just let me know later who your two will be?
We should just do it now. I think several people want to do it, I guess. But we should do it now. We can do it quickly. I mean, I know I would do it.
I've offered also.
I would do it. I'm on the fire station committee, and I know this is something we want to do then. Yeah.
So you want to make some motions?
Oh, yeah, I can make a motion, I'm not volunteering. I move that select people, Eric Eldridge and Ron Cohane, represent the select board on this very not formal subcommittee, not public body.
Second. Oh, no, you got a second.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Carries. 5-0.
Told you.
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah, seek a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
We have a motion.
School committee is adjourned. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for volunteering. Ron, thank you for volunteering.
It will not be fun.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
It will not be fun.
No.
These are tough.
No, we'll only make everybody